Today on Fish's Call Sheet, we have a special guest, a preeminent editor in our business, a unbelievably talented member of the Connors who really shapes our show, who pieces together our often long episodes and gets them down into the area that we want. Multiple Emmy nominated Brian Schnuckel is here to share the back and behind the scenes of editing and give me some tricks of the trade and make me up my game. Hi, Brian.
Hey, how are you, Michael? Good to see you.
What is your official title?
Well, I am actually the editor, and I also have a co-producing credit. They just feel that I give so much to the show that they feel that I deserve that. So, and I'm happy they do that. But I basically edit the entire show.
We're so pressed for time, and we have so many good jokes, so many funny moments. A lot of times, we're 6, 7, 8 minutes. And for people who don't edit, they don't realize, that's a third of an extra show every week. And trying to get all of that to line up and be smooth and keep as much of the highlights as you can, but at the same time, balance what you have to cut to get to time. But it's such an art form. You really do shape episodes that way.
Yeah, it becomes sometimes a trade-off as to what to keep and what not to keep. I remember going back to the Roseanne reboot pilot was 9 minutes long. And we were just looking at each other like, how did this happen? Sometimes you don't want to take up big chunks, and you can't because of the pipe or the information in there. But we figured out how to get the time out, and hey, it's a great episode. They're all great episodes. A lot of times going in, they know we're long and they have tape cuts. So we have built-in ideas of how we're going to take the time out. But we want to shoot it long because, sometimes the audience reaction is great and the actor, you guys just ad lib sometimes and it's just hilarious. We always try and shoot for the stars and keep everything we can and then get it to 21:30.
What are the things that you look for first? It's the main story points. It's what you kind of agreed on ahead of time. And how many voices in an average?
I attend both the table read and the writers run through and the producers run through and the network run through. So I'm always kind of knowing what's going on. I'm always watching to see what's happening with the script because sometimes it'll change. Little things will change. I basically do my cut based on what I've seen on the floor, and I'm in Video Village the entire time. So I kind of know what the producers want, what the director wants. So I edit my cut, the editor's cut, based on that. And I edit everything. So if it's 9 minutes long, it's 9 minutes long. And then the director will come in. Generally, the director doesn't take anything out. Our showrunner, of course, wants to see everything as it was shot. So it'll still be long or around the same time. Sometimes there's a performance change or this or that, but it's basically as written. And then it basically goes to Bruce Helford. He and I go through it, and sometimes Dave Kaplan and Bruce Rasmussen are present, and Sarah, of course, and Tom eventually, Tom Warner, our studio. Since I'm on the floor all the time, I kind of know what they like, what's the best take. And as you know, we don't shoot a lot of takes on this show. We shoot 2 or 3 takes. So I'm kind of limited as to which take to use anyway. But that's kind of the gist of it. And then, of course, after that, it goes to the network. And they note it. We don't get a lot of notes from the network, as you probably know, which is good. They have a lot of trust in our show.
When you meet people and you tell people that you edit,
when I tell them I'm a film editor, they become a lot more engaging, like, oh, really? What do you work on? And when you say the Connors, they go, oh, because everyone knows Connors, right? They're all excited and everything. And they ask me, do you know Michael Fishman? Do you know Sarah Gilbert? Of course I do, It's fun. It's fun to work on a popular show like we do.
Now, what's the best part of your job as an editor?
Boy, that's a good question. I just love editing. There's a different type of person, I think, that can sit in a room, because I work alone a lot of the time. I do my first cut alone, and that's a few days. And even after that, a lot of it's alone too. Sometimes the director doesn't come in. He or she will just, email me notes or whatever. So it's a different personality. You got to be able to work alone. You have to have a good sense of rhythm for the show. Our show is not Friends or Will and Grace or anything different. They're great shows. They're just cut a lot differently. the story's just kind of meandering through there. And, sometimes the audience will laugh at a joke for 15, 20 seconds, that. And you just cut around the room for reactions. And you guys are always giving me great reactions. So it's nice to have a show that gives you that rather than bang, 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 cut, cut, cut. We let the show kind of breathe and form its own rhythm, basically.
What's the greatest gift as an editor? Reactions around a room? Is it the way it's shot? What are the things as an editor where you're like, yes, thank you for giving me this?
It's a little bit of everything, but I would say reactions around the room really help a lot. You guys are really good about staying, what we say, in the scene. When you're editing, you want to cut to a reaction of someone and you can see that they're thinking of their next line.
Yeah, they're plotting their next move as opposed to enjoying the moment. And
you need that dog head turn, or you just need something that lets you know that they're on board with whatever actor that they're talking to has just said. So it's always good to realize that two of the cameras are probably on you as a reacting actor. So you got to give us something.
I'm a firm believer, especially I love with multicam in particular. Yeah. There's something special about in comedy, the interaction of the room, because in families, right, half of what happens or most incidents start with something unsaid.
Correct.
And so I think being able to share that moment. So I'm always a big proponent of, hear everything everybody says in the room. Take in what that means. What does it mean for your character? But what does it mean for the family? What does it mean for the environment? So I'm always trying to make sure you stay engaged. And there's a lot of people, especially people who come purely from procedural dramas or movies where they do mostly their coverage one at a time, meaning they shoot their part and then the other part. And they may not even be in the same room with the other main actor most of the time.
It's harder, yes.
Yeah. And they get distant sometimes because they're not used to expressing that muscle all the time or staying through everything. And like you said, you can see them thinking about what they're supposed to say next.
Right. And as you know, we shoot one take usually to the end. And if there's a problem with the camera or an actor misses a line or there's a bad sound effect, we'll just plow through it. We don't want to take you guys out of the scene. We'll go back and do another take if we need to. Sometimes we don't need to. Sometimes, I'm in Video Village all the time, so I know what I can edit around and what I need to reshoot. But even then, we usually don't do short pickups. We give you guys enough time before what I need to get into the scene so that it doesn't look like, oh, that looks like a pickup. I mean, I don't know if people notice that, but we do, right? I do.
Yeah, I know but we probably watch slightly different. I do think, part of hopefully doing this, but also just in general, is I think our audiences are becoming so much more aware and they're so much more well-educated because a lot of people shoot stuff now. A lot of people are posting things online or making clips. So I think they're starting to understand the way those jumps and cuts kind of work.
Right. It's great having a live audience there because you guys really feed off that, I know.
It's a different experience. You can raise the level, but also you get to challenge yourself. And especially when you do more than one take, it's a chance to either do something different or really play or heighten or ride that wave of the timing. And that's the thing. The timing changes one take to another. And that also plays a different game with you for editing from timing and maybe perspective or which camera angles you may go to.
Right. I see you guys, you do something in the first take and you thought maybe the audience will react to that, maybe they won't, and they do. And then you go, well, I can step it up a notch and do something even bigger than that. And then the audience just roars, right? And then I have to figure out how to get to the next take, right? Sometimes it's not that easy.
Once you have one good one, kind of already that's in the can and we have that, then you're kind of free to play as much as you want. And that's a lot of times where the really fun stuff happens.
Oh, yeah, definitely. We sometimes have a physical show and you guys just take it and just roll with it. I mean, I remember Laurie Metcalf when she was doing the routine from her high school with the broom and she was twirling the thing and everything. The first take was good, but then the second take, she added a couple more twists to that, and it was
Right.
just, we were all roaring. It was crazy funny.
Well, and with Lori, it's funny because we kind of egg her on from the standpoint of, she's like, did I go too far? We're like, no, add more, go more, do bigger, right?
I don't know that she could go too far. I think everyone's so used to her that what is too much with her, right?
Right. As an editor, what's the hardest part?
Wow. I don't know. I would have to say the hardest part is deciding what to take out and what to leave, because I do have input into that too. Generally, Bruce Helford and I go through the show, and let's say it's 6 minutes long, and we'll do a pass, and we'll take 4 of that out, whatever, 5, somewhere in there. We get it down to where it's more manageable. And then I go through the show, and I look for couplets to take out, air to take out, or this and that, and I make myself a little sheet of lines. As you know, our script is numbered, so I do everything by numbers. And then Bruce will come back in. It depends on how much time he has, but sometimes we'll sit and watch the whole thing, or sometimes he'll say, so what do you think, And I just step through these things and go, we could take this out, cut to a reaction of Fishman, and do this, yada, yada. There's 14 seconds, or we could do this. And usually he's, a lot of times he's agreeable. Sometimes it just depends on how close he is to the script, who wrote it. So we get the time out, and then he usually gets me within 10 or 15 seconds. And then I can just take that time out. I don't even need anybody to help me do that. I just go ahead and tighten the show a little here and there, and it's imperceivable what I do. So I think that's the hardest part. Editing, you guys, it's kind of natural, because you guys are also natural, and it's just like I say, our show is not one where you say your line and then I cut off of you instantly. I hang on you, because your face is tell all, so then I go to the next person or the next setup or whatever. So that's the easy part for me. The hard part is deciding what to take out, I think.
It's so different from one project to the next, how you might edit. Something where you kind of let it flow and you go reaction to reaction to moment versus really trying to do jump cuts or back and forth. There's a lot more close, right?
Right.
In and out, and that's a very different style.
Right. And that's not really our show generally. Right.
Yeah. Now, do you have a preference show type? I mean, you seem to really enjoy what we do.
I do. I like it because it's, you guys are all world-class actors. You do 2 days of rehearsal and we're there, the character development, you guys already obviously have known that for 15 years, and you just know what to do. So it's a piece of cake. And we've got, well-established directors that come in and do this, and it happens so quickly. I think, we shoot Friday nights at 6 and we're done by before 9 generally. That's
really fast for TV. I know people think, you're thinking a half-hour show, but realistically 4 or 5 hours. I talked to Bill Sindelar, who does our warm-up, and he works on shows where they're 4, 5, 6 hours into taping.
Oh, I've edited those.
That has to be really hard.
Well, and at 11 o'clock, you're like, okay, we need to send the audience home. Because they've been there for 6 hours, and right. You can just tell they're beat. So then it becomes more of a issue for Video Village, and we send a few people in the audience to laugh so that the actors still feel like someone's watching.
Right.
But yeah, we've all been there. There's shows that get rewritten on the set. Totally. I've been there when they have rewritten entire scenes, and you literally take an hour while the writers and director figure everything out. Then they have to block it, and then they have to shoot it. It happens, it happens on pilots frequently, and I get that. That's very important. The pilot is your make or break. If you don't put your best foot forward on a pilot, you may not get the pickup. And understandably, going back to character development, they don't really know how these actors are going to jive eye with each other until maybe they've shot a couple scenes and you're going, okay, maybe we could do this or do that. So they're trying to get the network or whoever to buy the show. So generally pilots go later than a normal.
I love playing with the passion of an audience. And I look at that opportunity as we should be ready to put on a show. And then you rise and use the energy they have and kind of match that rhythm. And it really helps you heighten things. And I love a live audience gives you live feedback.
Yeah.
So
it's right there, right in front of you.
Yeah. And there's a joke that you may think is great, but for whatever reason, it doesn't resonate with them. And you're like, okay, we need to reevaluate that one. Putting the joke, maybe sometimes it's just flipping it and changing the word and making sure the joke is towards the end of the line as opposed to the beginning where you have a bunch of stuff after that kind of steps on the rest of the laugh or the enjoyment.
I mean, sometimes they have the blow of the scene and they've got a couple different versions. And you've been there. We sit there and we do one version. And then we think, and sometimes we have to do it for S&P too, as you know, we have to do an alternate version just to make sure that things are going to pass standards and practices. So,
right. And for people who don't know, that's the network has restrictions, or sometimes they want to reevaluate things and they may come back to you later and say, initially we thought that was okay, but we can't use it because of this, whatever the reason is. And so you need something else to have to fill that spot or have that big moment, because you can't just go with one option and then find out later you can't use it.
Exactly.
Which I imagine every once in a while happens to you in the editing room is they say, hey, we got to get rid of that.
Yeah. Even after the thought.
Now you got to play the game of trying to leave at the highest moment that wasn't supposed to be the end.
Right. And as you know, the network, the people from the network are there most of the time we shoot, definitely when we shoot in front of the audience. So they will say, hey, we're not sure that's going to clear, so can we do an alt just to be safe? And, it comes down to a lawyer thing a lot of times at the network, and they just want to make sure that, we're not advertising a product or saying things that we may not have clearance to. They're pretty good about getting all that stuff done before we have a shooting draft out.
Yeah.
But not always.
we have a great staff, and shows always have people who do research and people who kind of check all these things, and you try to make sure everything's 100% double checked and buttoned up and taken care of. But every once in a while we get a surprise, right?
Yeah, something slips through. Exactly. We've had the VFX products off the sets before just because things haven't cleared and stuff like that. I remember one instance, I think it was in the Lunchbox set. Remember, they were redoing the Lunchbox. So there was a ladder over there, a yellow ladder that said Werner on it, which is obviously a ladder company. Right. And it's also the studio part of our show.
Right.
So I said, is that ladder cleared? And they go, oh, no. So they should have, yelled. The ladder's yellow, so they should have probably yelled the ladder. But
they used to call it Greeking, and then they used to call it something else. Greeking was they used to try and make it look almost like Greek letters, so it looked something foreign. Add a little piece here and a piece there to change the words or take out a letter. And when I used to work props, we used to do a lot of that stuff because in the old days you couldn't have any logos whatsoever. So we used to eliminate everything that even looked almost like a logo. Or now a lot of times you make new logos because of computers. Mm-hmm. You just slap them over the existing ones.
Yeah, that's so easy to do. It doesn't happen very often, but I think it's kind of funny when something slips through like that because, there's so much in these sets that you got to think about. And your eyes are drawn to you guys for the most part, not like the flower in the background and your monster back there. And
yeah,
Godzilla's right behind you, and you've got a pyramid of, so that's not really a pyramid, but
obelisk. Yeah, I mix up what I have in the room. The room's kind of simple, but Godzilla's from the original show, so
right. I remember that. Yeah, that's awesome. Are you doing all the editing yourself?
I'm doing everything.
Everything
from inviting people on to tracking down guests to keeping track of paperwork to editing and going through all the pieces and doing everything. I'm a one-stop shop, and it's a lot of fun. It's my passion. I love and admire the people that I work with and just how many amazing, gifted artists I get to work with on a daily basis. And so I want to celebrate the people that don't always get the love they deserve.
Well, that's very nice of you. We have a great crew. I
Yeah.
hope I see more behind the scenes people. They're all awesome.
It's also about the individual people. And, you can get people in the same department, but their perspective is different. I feel like I can interview 1,000 people and 1,000 people in the same job, and every one of them is different because each person has their own feel or vision of what they do and why they do it, what brought them.
Yeah,
So,
everyone's got kind of different experiences. It's fun because, you and I are a little on the older side. I'm older than you, but we've got the new breed behind us coming in that are some of our PAs, oh, this is my second show, and yada, yada. It's kind of funny. Or their first show, because we have a lot of PAs that this is their first gig out of college. So it's fun
right.
seeing how they grow. And you reference things that they have no idea what you're talking about. They give you
Yeah.
this blank, like, who is that?
Right. And it's funny because their knowledge of the history is different. And for us, a lot of it's not history. We were there, but
Exactly.
it's funny. And I'm trying to touch on a lot of veterans in this
Mhm.
business, but I've also been doing some people who are new. And I'm trying to get that new perspective too of I want to watch some of these people and see how they grow and see where their path takes them or where they think they're headed.
Yeah, that's awesome. Watching how watch their IMDb and what shows they work on, and some of these people become directors, producers. It's fun seeing them go up the ladder. I mean, I could be working for one of these PAs one day. You never know.
Well, that's my thing. Especially the ones that are really driven. I always tell them, my hope is that one day we're working on your dream project and I'm there because I've earned the right to be there and help you build this.
Right. I get phone calls from people I've worked with 30 years ago. Before I even did Baby Daddy, I forget what I was editing at the time, but I got a phone call from Mara Brock-Akil. She created The Game and many other shows. And she called me out of the blue. And I'm like, oh, hi. And she was I think she was a writer's assistant on Moesha when I met her. And she said, hey, I don't know if you've heard, but The Game, which was a multicam sitcom, I think they shot 3 seasons and then it was canceled. And people loved it so much, this woman in Florida started a Facebook page, like, bring back The Game. So they all of a sudden had over 1 million followers, and Mara took all this good info to BET, and they decided to bring it back. She knew me as the editor of Moesha and the Parkers and this and that, so she called me, and I went and edited 2 seasons of The Game, which became a single camera show during that time. It's all about making relationships with people, and good ones, because they'll remember you if you, do a good job and you just remember who you worked with. So fun seeing people you haven't worked with in 20 years. Well, we did so-and-so together a long time ago.
Yep. Take us through that, because right now we work on a multicam, meaning we usually have 4 cameras and they're moving around. You just mentioned that you edited a show that was a single cam. What's the difference from an editor standpoint of that kind of different setup?
It takes longer to edit a single camera show because the director, the crew will shoot your coverage, and then they turn the camera around and shoot the coverage of the person that you're talking to in a scene where you've got a couple people talking. That's called coverage. They shoot the coverage, then they have to shoot a wide shot. It's a longer day. Those are usually full 11-hour days, and they do so many setups a day. A setup is like one shot. Sometimes they'll shoot 2 cameras. They might shoot you tight and a little wider, but they get your coverage, then they turn the camera around and shoot the other actor.
And in coverage, like, for example, in this scenario, you might shoot me and then you might shoot a tighter of me, and then we turn the cameras around and shoot you.
Correct.
Unlike this, where we're shooting both at the same time. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, that's also one of those places where you can miss little gaps of things, or there's little gaps when it comes to coverage and editing. They don't always match up perfect.
Yeah, the script supervisor has to really be on their game, because you're right, and you might even shoot the other side of me on another day or later, because that actor is doing something else. So it's harder to shoot a single camera show. Just the first 80s are always crazy because they've got this list of what's their call time. Oh, we got to shoot this, guys. We got to shoot that. And it's a puzzle
Yeah, and the call sheets get crazy because of
Oh, yeah.
timing and hours and setups and locations a lot of
Right.
times. So quite a thing, and that's where the call sheet kind of comes in to kind of try to organize that, and it changes rapidly.
Right. And in the single camera world, you're breaking that wall all the time, because the camera, after you shoot your coverage, the camera's in the set. So you obviously couldn't shoot it like a sitcom because the camera's right there. Then you move it around to the 180 degrees and shoot the other side. Here, our fourth wall is our camera aisle, right? All you actors are kind of playing out a little bit, and we're shooting it more like a stage play than a single camera show like that.
Blocking the movements of the actors and then the camera angles you use is very different. The actor, I feel like, in multicam has a much bigger responsibility for the accountability of shooting lanes and locations and hitting your mark within the framework of playing. You have to
Yes.
really do these things because, again, if I lean back and take myself away from whatever happens right after I make my line, then you can't have a reaction from me. Or, we stack up behind each other. You can't use that shot. Now you have to go to a different camera for that coverage.
Exactly. And sometimes I have to blow up to lose an arm or something, so that when I cut to the opposite angle, it's more of a match. If you watch the single camera shows at home and you really start to look at the cuts, you'll see non-matching issues now and again. But for the most part, if you're into the show, it works. Just don't watch too close sometimes. If you turn the sound down, that's the key. If you really want to see the bad edits, turn the sound down so you can't hear what they're saying, and just watch what happens.
Do that as a director.
Yeah.
And sometimes even as a writer, what I'll do is I'll take a show and I'll watch with the sound off, because you can see a lot more technically because nothing gets covered by the story. As an actor and a director, I like to watch and see, am I getting the message of this show or this episode based solely on the visual aspect? Is that all working for me?
Right.
And it's a good cue for me, both as a performer, but also as a director, to say, okay, this worked, this didn't. Why did this work? Okay, what did this person do? Wow, that person was really invested and made me invest without any gift of sound.
And you really see their body language too when there's no sound. You really can see what they're. Sometimes the sound hides that a little bit, because you I guess the sound is kind of a buffer and you're not looking at their movements so much. But when you turn that sound down, you pretty much see everything from a blink of an eye to how their legs are crossed and how they're moving their arms and everything.
Yeah, a brilliant acting coach, Steve Easton, once told me that Ben Kingsley used to say, out of your stillness grows beauty.
Mm.
And there's a lot of actors who are doing a lot of stuff. And particularly on single camera, where you do a lot of close-up, or movies, on movies, if I'm doing a lot of stuff with my eyebrows when I say things, those things are jumping 10 feet, because the screen is so big. Right. So there's a lot of subtlety to knowing when to play big, knowing when to be simple.
Staying still. Just let your face be your reaction. Sometimes is the best thing.
Especially really deep moments. As an actor, as a director, and that's why they say, when you go in close, you really see the depth of a performer, because you got to see, is it happening in the eyes? Is it happening on their face? Because it's at that point, it's not a lot of movement. It's looking deeply into the camera and trying to tell the most authentic truth.
Exactly. Yeah, that makes for the best stories. I always try and cut around eyes. You want your eye lines are very important. When you've looked at her long enough and what she's pulling out of your eyes, you just have to. I swim those cut points around quite a bit. Sometimes I even open them up a little bit if I need to create a little more of a moment. Eyes are very important.
Take us through that as an editor, right? Of pulling in to kind of get rid of something in a frame, or pulling back and kind of blowing it all up to get a different perspective. And then do you try to, I know a lot of times the director's job is to frame kind of the shot itself, but you can reframe shots.
Yes. We shoot our show in 2K, which gives me a pretty liberal amount of room to blow up. I can blow up shots, they say 50%. I usually don't go that far, but sometimes I'll tighten something up 20, 30%. If you've got a little too much air over here on your left side, I can move that over a little bit. Sometimes the cameraman, and it's not their fault, they're shooting through a doorway or there's a prop there or something. And I know all our cameramen really well, and they know that I would rather them just leave it there and I'll fix it rather than them trying to. Our show happens so quickly, as you know.
Yeah.
There's not time to stop and readjust everything because the joke will be gone. The audience is roaring. So our cameramen they're the best in the business, and they will stop. If there's a piece of door or something that I'm going to get rid of, they know not to just tighten past it. They know that I'll fix it in post, basically. Yeah, we do that. We do that frequently. We'll take booms out, but I've always got that 20, 30, 40% area to reframe. I can't edit what we don't have, so I can't back that out. Like if there's a flower pot over here, I can't add that in.
Right.
You actually can, but you can't add. You actually can add more set space if you think about it, and a way to do it. You could go back and reshoot something and add things, and it's done. We get most everything in a couple takes. Very little blowing up or anything. A little bit here and there for the most part, but it is what it is. It's a stage play. Well, we shoot our show fairly on the wide side. We're not one of these shows that goes really tight. Where's my face? Like right there.
Right.
We're kind of like what you and I are seeing right now. A lot of times, just because of body language, we'll shoot cowboys.
A close-up in our show is kind of here to here, right?
Yeah, not real tight.
Not real tight. It's kind of chest to head, right?
Yeah.
But in single cameras, that might be closer to just the head or top of shoulders. And in movies, it can be as close as a real close-up can be just the face or just the eyes, even almost an insert shot.
Well, and even other sitcoms. There are a lot of sitcoms that shoot stuff really tight too. We're just not one of those shows.
Full cowboy being shins up, but we do a lot of waist up.
Yeah.
A lot of where we're seated next to each other and
2 shots, 50-50
shots.
Yeah.
And then we do a lot of shin up, full cowboy, where, and that term kind of comes from in the old days. That was how they matched up the size of people a lot of times, was you didn't shoot the floor because some people were walking on ramps and, and there's cowboy boots, or some people were in boots and some people weren't.
Right.
Because cowboy boots
were marks all over the place down there too, right?
Yes, and all kinds of stuff on the ground, or there's lots of stories in the old movies. A lot of times the main actors were very short, and a lot of the women were very tall to give them that real long, elegant appearance. Mm-hmm. And there would be trenches dug so that the female actress could go into the trench so that the male actor could look bigger as they went across the screen.
Walking by, right.
Yeah, and then you got to shoot them cowboy so that they both look like it matches.
Exactly. Oh, yeah. We even do some of that on our show, right? Yeah. There are times because, Sarah Gilbert's not very tall. So sometimes we need to get her up so that,
Well, I know as a kid, I was on the shorter side. So mm-hmm. The first time going through, there was lots of times where if I had a really important scene, the adult was either seated or we moved to a position where they became seated so that we were more face on face.
Right.
We had more of an even playing field.
Especially when you're at the kitchen table.
Yes.
And you're talking to John Goodman. He's a big guy. So
right.
You're here. So you have to be like on an apple box or something to get you up a couple inches?
Yeah. We used to use phone books like people would use in their home all the time. It's funny. And now I'm so much taller than most of the people, with the exception of John, that there are times that they ask me to kind of either shrink it down or to, right. I play a lot of stuff seated now to try and keep me from being too ominous or too big a presence in the room sometimes.
Right. Yeah, you've gotten a lot bigger than you were, that's for sure.
Yeah. You talked about blowing it up. I mean, that's where resolutions come in, right?
Yes. The 4 networks that are the original networks, especially ABC, does not require us to air in 2K even. We do that. I requested that so that I could do the blow-ups, because when we did the Roseanne reboot, we shot just in HD, which is not as high a resolution. And there were times, I mean, sometimes I have to lose an actor. I have to, where am I here? I have to literally take out a third of the screen.
Right.
That's a pretty big blow up. You know, again, when we're having to take 8-9 minutes out of a show, it becomes difficult. And sometimes you need to either bring in an actor early or get an actor out early or something. So it requires doing that. So even though our show does not air in 2K, I requested that so that I would have more latitude. Netflix requires everything to be shot in 4K. And I think they do that just for shelf life. And I think their shows do actually air in 4K. The networks are not really so concerned about that. And 2K looks pretty good for the most part, unless you're going to blow something really up or look at it on a screen.
For people, you know, maybe at home, people who don't really understand, is it's about pixels and space. And what it really becomes is how fine are the edges of things. Because what happens as you start to raise things and blow things out is your proportions, your edges, the contrast starts to disappear and you start to kind of bleed out and it looks kind of washed out and grainy.
Right.
You know, broadcast television has shifted so rapidly in the last, 15 years or so. You know, when we went to digital cable, we jumped and then we went to high definition. And now with televisions jumping to 4K, you know, a lot of the stuff that people shoot is still below 2K. 2K is actually on the higher end.
Yes, it is. HD is basically the entry level high definition standard, and there's a lot still shot in that. I mean, I'm sure in some smaller markets they're still shooting NTSC somewhere just so they can get stuff on the web and stuff like that. And that's the problem with the Roseanne reboot. The old Roseannes is they were all shot NTSC because that's all we had at the time, and now we have to blow them, and that's a 4:3 picture ratio.
Right. And
now we have to make that into a 16:9 picture ratio.
Right.
So you lose a lot of content and you get these big, it's like now we have those extra close-ups.
Yes. But they're awkwardly shaped because they were never intended that way.
Exactly.
How long have you been in the business, Brian?
Since high school. I started working at the local TV station in Idaho Falls, Idaho. I ran camera and the videotape machines. Our videotape machines were 2-inch quad machines. The videotape running through the heads was actually 2 inches wide, and these machines took up the back of a pickup truck. And we had 3 videotape machines for the entire TV station. All the news film was news film. So there was no 3/4 inch at the time.
Wow.
There was no 1 inch. There was 3 quad machines and film. Think way ahead of how we were going to use these 3 videotape machines during newscasts. I would put all the news stories, I would dub them all onto 1 quad reel. So they were all in order. And then the other 2 machines were used for commercials. So I was behind the technical director and the director in another room, and I had a script in front of me of what the next order was. So I would queue up the commercials, and that required, after 1 commercial break ran, you had to rewind them, put them back on the shelf, and load the next ones. And then the other 3rd machine had all the news and sports stories on it, and those would roll too. And all these machines needed a 7-second pre-roll. In other words, the technical director rolled the machine, and 7 seconds later, he was able to cut to it because it took that much time for the machines to lock up. So it was a whole different world back then.
It's crazy, right? Because now your cell phone runs things faster than that. It's crazy. I mean, I remember the first time, we were on those big tapes, right? They were, they look like giant VHS tapes almost. And other people were shooting on film. I'm actually, one of the probably younger guys who knows how to load film through a camera and track it all down and check the gate and do all these things. Back in those days, editing was such a fine art because you were literally either combining old film or you were running 2 things and running them to blend them together to record them into a new
And I remember putting, during the newscast, there would be a car accident or something would happen, and they would bring the film back, and our processor was in the basement, and you were literally putting the film up while it was still wet, so that you could get it on the air at the end of the 10 o'clock news that night. I had so much gunk on my hands. They'd say, Brian, you got to go load the projector. It's coming up from the processor right now. And the guy named LeVar would hand me the film, and I'm still, wet, and I'm throwing it on there and
try to feed it through, make sure you don't miss anything, right? Like
crazy days back then, let me tell you.
Well, and 7-second delays may not sound like a lot, but when you're doing a show like that, 7 seconds can be an eternity. I got to work at a time period where we still had delays and things like that, because it's a good skill. So when things go wrong now in a digital age, it's way easier to handle.
And after I graduated high school, I moved to Boise, Idaho, and went to BSU, Boise State University. So my shift was 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. It was graveyard. So I would spend all night dubbing all the spot reels to that's actually two 90-minute reels, so that all the commercials for that day came off that one reel. So I've really gone the whole gamut from film to quad to 1-inch machines to digital to beta. I actually directed television news in Boise. We would have to count down the reporter to the story. As a director, you had the script in front of you, and you tried to back time what 6 or 7 seconds was. So you'd roll the tape machine, and then the floor director would be counting down to the anchor as to when we could cut to the story. So you prayed that was within a second or two of each other. Now it's instant. One of my duties when I was a cameraman originally in 1975 was one of the cameramen had to, before the newscast, drive to the airport, pick up the weather charts, which were printed on a fax-looking thermal machine, I forget what it was called, and drive back. And then we would shoot those on our third camera, and like you say, green screen them behind our weather guy.
What was your dream coming into the business?
I got it. I'd always been interested in, quarter-inch audio recording because my dad did that growing up. And I was kind of one of those technical nerdy guys, And I was in the band in junior high, and the band director knew that I liked that. So he put me in charge of recording. So before all the performances for our parents, I'd go set up a couple microphones and, do that and everything. But I was still playing the tuba and the sousaphone at that point. So I'd have to go sneak over and record everything. And then at the end, I'd have to go turn it off and everything. I got a job at the auditorium when I went to Idaho Falls High School, running lights and sound for our theater performances and also for the shows that came to the theater through the city. Like we had Liberace, we had the New Christy Minstrels, we had a lot of mainstream kind of performance acts. I knew that I really liked the technical part of it. I always knew that I wanted to do something. I directed television news for probably, 5-6 years, the 6 o'clock and 10 o'clock news, all the Boise State football, basketball games. We went on the road. As you know, directing is quite stressful at times. I eventually moved to Sacramento. CMX editing, which I'm sure you know what that is.
Yeah.
CMX editing is the predecessor to the computer editing. CMX editing is computer assisted editing, where the computer triggers the tape machines to run in sync with each other, trigger the switcher and everything.
To kind of overlap. And in those days, you used to hit the switches to go back and forth and decide what was really live, essentially, right?
Yeah. You would have you could set up the editor to trigger your switcher to do things, or you could do it manually. But all the tape machines would run in sync with each other, so you could recreate an edit if you needed to. And then in the 90s, of course, companies like Lightworks and Avid came to the forefront, and that's what we're editing on now.
Now, are you using Avid, right? We use Avid for the show.
We use Avid Media Composer to do the editing for the show, correct. Really 3 or 4 different editors out there. There's Adobe Premiere. There's obviously Final Cut Pro, which I've edited a couple shows on in the past. I prefer Avid because I've just known it so long. it's like second nature to me. So there's about 5 or 6 different high-end editing companies out there.
Things that used to take a lot of time. Now you're like, this is easy.
Yeah.
You know, I hear people complaining. It's funny. I might be the one person who doesn't complain crazy about like render times or how long it takes to cut some of these things. So I'm like, you have no idea. We used to like start the machine and go home and then come back the next day.
Do it overnight. Yeah.
And hope it was done.
Oh yeah. Those were the days, huh? For people that don't know, we shoot the show with 4 or even 5 cameras. We shot a lot of 5 camera stuff this last season. And then the computer syncs everything up by time code, and I watch it exactly as it was shot with 4 or 5 cameras. Yeah, some software will crash trying to run 5 streams of DNX 175, which is a codec we added in at the same time, is taxing on computers. So we don't use the latest version of the software. We use something that everyone in town has been using, and we know it's solid.
Our turnaround from when we shoot it to when it goes on the air is maybe 3 weeks on average, sometimes 4 weeks, but often it's less.
And also to mention, we shoot our show Friday nights at 6, and there's been a couple times where we have shot a scene for playback at 4 o'clock or 3:30 to 4 o'clock. And then everyone goes to eat, and my assistant Ray and I start digitizing, editing, and everything. And we get the producers over to look at it like 5, and then we tweak it and this and that, and it's ready to go.
You get it. We talked about how many people kind of take a look at it, but you know, all of those approvals, and then has to go to the network, and all these approvals have to happen in sequential order, essentially. True. And they have to happen after every episode. But meanwhile, you have other episodes that you're still working on, or that you may have to go back and adjust something, or we had to reshoot a few things. Not so much this last season, but the season before, we reshot to reshape certain shows from early in the season, especially Separation of Church and Dan. You know that.
Yeah, we shot that church scene over again. Yeah, outside then inside, right?
Yeah, we shot the outside on location.
Right.
And we didn't like the way that looked in comparison to everything else. And then the tone of the show changed because it was a lot more in the church and some of that stuff. And then we shifted it to more in the garage and more conversations between Dan and his daughters. And so that shift required real short notice, real quick shifting and re-editing.
Yeah. Our post, do you want me to talk about that at all?
Please.
So I have Brooke, you know Brooke. She's our post supervisor, associate producer. Everything kind of runs through her. She's got a master schedule of when I need to have things done so that we can hit the air. And after my cut is done, there's a whole nother process that the show has to go through finishing. It's got to be color corrected. There are actually a lot of VFX shots that you don't even really see too often, but there are things that need to be fixed. There are marks on the floors, actors' marks on the floors need to be removed. Boom shadows. Sometimes a product placement thing will have to be Greeked or something. Sometimes we even have to do things to people's faces. It's not common, but every once in a while there's something we want to clean up here or there just to make something look smoother. So that can take a couple days, and then it goes into the sound mix. It takes a couple days. It takes a day of prep just to get it ready to go over to Charlie McDaniel. So that's our process. And then of course there's more deliverables, closed captioning. It goes through the whole gamut. There's a lot more to meets the eye than just here's the show. There's many versions of it. There's streaming versions of it. There's the version that goes to ABC for air. There's promo versions that we have to output ahead of time, but they have to have something to promote so that they know it's coming on in 3 weeks, 2 weeks, whatever.
And all of those the formatting's different. You know, they could be different bit rates, different formats, different resolutions, different sizes now with all of the social medias and everything else, and all the different codecs that have to kind of be utilized, optimized, I would say. I mean, you can use some of them, but they just don't look as good. And so from a professional standpoint, your editing job has really kind of grown and changed over the years.
It's more, there's a lot more involved than just getting the master to ABC to air. It's like, there's so many different places that it's, going to air in so many different versions that it just takes a lot longer. My assistant Ray is constantly doing outputs for different versions.
Well, Brooke and Ray and Kip, and I mean, everybody who works in our kind of post department is the way I would phrase it, is astonishingly good at their job. You've had a long, illustrious career. What are some of the highlights? What are some of your most memorable projects you've worked on?
I really liked Moesha. Henry Chan was the director, and he was an editor turned director. He edited Cosby. He edited A Different World sitcoms back in the 70s and 80s, and he turned director somewhere around the Moesha time. So we're talking the late 90s. And he was kind of the flagship director over there. He directed the majority of them. And he and I had known each other for such a long time. We used to bike ride here in Manhattan Beach together. And we'd met at Complete Post, where I was a staff editor, and he was also editing Different World and different shows there. So we knew each other for a long time. And it was all shot on Super 16. It was a film show. I went and edited The Parkers, and The Parkers was shot on film, as I recall, but that's when they made the switch.
Right.
That show switched to digital. So I love those two shows. I did Lucky Louie for HBO, which I really enjoyed that show just because of the rawness and stuff like that. That was kind of fun to work on that show. Very good actors on that. And Andrew Wayman, one of our flagship directors, directed all of the Lucky Louie episodes, except the pilot.
He's just such a great guy to work with.
Stable, even-keeled guy who just doesn't get riled up over anything. Yeah.
And leads with a quiet kindness.
And then Baby Daddy. I did Baby Daddy, 100 episodes. Like, I was on Baby Daddy for 6 seasons. And you get kind of like, you don't even get calls at pilot season sometimes because oh, he's doing Baby Daddy,
Yeah, he's committed, right?
And then you come out into the world again, and it's like, oh, I haven't seen you since Moesha or the Parkers or something. It's fun seeing people all over again. And as you know, there's what, 5 big sound stages in Hollywood. There's Warner Brothers, there's Radford, there's Paramount, there's Sony and Fox. So right. People you haven't worked with are stuck on those lots for however many seasons the show can. So you won't see people, but they're still around for years, right?
You connect, right? You
reconnect. Yeah.
When you reconnect, you have this shared history together.
Yeah.
And they're stories that you really only the people who were there know, right? and you went through these experiences together. I always equate it to their friends from high school or their friends from college or that first group that they all work together at a company. These are groups that stick with you. And when you get back together, you kind of fall right back into your connections.
Exactly. There's a story when we were doing Moesha, it was shot on film, right? So you had rolls of film that didn't last near as long as this digital stuff does. So you'd have all these rolls of film at the end of the day. And it was the job of the post-production associate to take them over to, I think it was Photochem at the time. And they had to get transferred. And this all happened in the middle of the night. Okay, after we shoot the show, it all goes in the soup. And a couple hours later, it comes out. And then it went over to Complete Post, where it was all digitized all night long. So that when I came in the next morning, I would have something to edit. Well, a film reel from, I think it was a C camera, disappeared. Was never found to this day. So we're over there, and you had sign-ins and everything. It wasn't like it is in computers now, but it just came missing, and nobody knew that it disappeared. And back then, on a film roll, I forget the timing, but there were like a couple scenes on it. Maybe 5, 6 takes on this one piece of film. And they said, you got to see if you can edit this without that camera. Because if we need to reshoot, we're going to have to get everybody back and yada, yada. So I edited the scene best I could, and they bought it.
Well, that's the hard part. I mean, and this is, like we joked about earlier, sometimes there's a piece that doesn't work or a piece that doesn't fit. And rarely can you go back. And then if you go back, the hard part is trying to match the continuity
of
what that day was like.
Everything, lighting, wardrobe, makeup, everything. Yeah,
Hair.
We're very careful now shows are very careful about checking. They still call it. You still hear them say, "Check the gates," and everyone laughs.
Right.
But it's basically before we wrap a set out, we actually have to sign off that we have all the takes digitally stored in like 3 different places. And then the next day, like if we have a swing set, they can tear that down. But we're very conscious. Ray, my assistant, as soon as it's shot, for the most part, we break off at lunch. And every once in a while, as you know, we have a no roll or something happens. And we just have to make sure that we have everything we need to edit the show. Yeah.
But the one that also happens is sometimes you hit it or the light is on the camera.
And it's not
recording.
There's a technical problem in the camera.
Yeah.
I know you remember this last season, we had to stop and change the camera body out.
Yep. It just, for whatever reason, it wasn't working.
But it said it was.
Yeah, it kept telling you it was running and kept saying it was recording and it kept saying it was doing it, but
nothing there.
We were lucky because it took us a little time to figure out, catch it, and change the body. If we hadn't caught it, we'd be in the same situation. And then there's not even a reel to find. It's just not there.
You have to have a process in your post department where everything is signed off for. Camera cards, because we reuse them. As soon as they're wiped, it's got to be copied in 3 separate places, and there can't be any hiccups in any of those clips. So it's a process. It takes time.
It takes it. So they come out now, for people who don't know, they come out in cards, like memory cards. Think of it almost like little hard drives. Take them and you transfer them, but you don't just transfer them once. Like you said, you transfer them to 3 different locations that are essentially apart from each other. So if anything was to happen, you have a backup, and you have a backup for that one. And then
the cards we use hold 240 gigabytes, so they're quite large. But when you're recording at 2K or 4K, that gets eaten up really quickly. Let me tell you, it goes by really fast. The Connors, we have 7 sets of them, and we generally use 2 on a pre-shoot day, and then 4 on an audience day or something like that. And then we've usually got a spare. That's all going to change this season because we don't have the live audience aspect. Now we may put some people in the audience distanced that work on the show, laugh groups.
See, for me, I don't want anybody to laugh because they're supposed to. I got to earn it.
They sound forced, right?
The writer executive in me, when I run shows at some point, one of the things for me is I want people to laugh only authentically. And I know that's hard because then it doesn't mean as an actor you always get the extra feedback that I got to make you laugh.
Yeah.
Because then it doesn't give you this false sense of security that isn't there. Because what happens is when the audience comes, the truth is the audience doesn't care, and they don't care who's at the top of the call sheet. They don't care what the order of the players are. They don't care about what happened that day or anything else. They only care about, is it funny? Do they believe you? They react based on like they're watching.
And does Vito laugh?
Right. Right.
Oh man, he is right there too. For people who don't know, Vito is our dolly cameraman, and he's usually about 15 feet away from you at the most.
Yeah.
And he's got this laugh that is unmistakably Vito. But when something is funny, he just unloads. He just laughs. It's hilarious.
He laughs with a joy, right?
Yeah.
And
it's funny.
People who love moments and share the laugh with you, you can tell when they're authentic. And that's the one thing I like is he's authentic with his laugh. So you get what you're really getting.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part. Sometimes when you tell people, especially if it's like writers, assistants, and people who are invested in the process, and you say, okay, we want you to come laugh. Like, there's people who are going to laugh at their joke. And every once in a while in a run through, it kills me because this is a behind the scenes thing is the timing will be off or someone will take an extra pause and the person knows it's their joke and they start laughing early. And I'm always like, oh, you got caught. Then Brian, what's a moment that you just couldn't wait to come home and share with your loved ones, with your family?
As you know, I got nominated for an Emmy for the Connors last year. So that was kind of fun. And I think I found out from another editor texted me, and I was like, it happens early in the morning, right?
Right.
So I don't even think I was awake. I don't remember. My phone goes off. Congratulations. It's always kind of fun.
Yeah.
But and my wife also works for Disney. So they're on board with all this. They know what it's like. But one thing that Joanne and I do that we really enjoy is we try and help mentor. We'll sit down. We just had a Zoom meeting with a lovely girl yesterday who's at Santa Clara University, where Joanne went, and she's a film major. We're giving her pointers right now on what to do, even while she's still in school, look for internships. And then when she does graduate next May, we're going to help her work on her resume, give her some contacts and get her foot in the door. We've done this with countless kids, and a lot of them are working now. So it's fun. It's good to see these kids working on shows, movies, things like that. And we just enjoy doing that. So
I'm a huge proponent of paying it forward and
trying
to open a door and be a step up for someone, helping them on their journey and helping them learn things that it took us time to learn. And
right.
If you can give some of those people that knowledge earlier on or help guide them to empower other people, that's the gift of our experience. And I thank you. I thank you.
No, it's fun. I enjoy it. And when you and I got into this business, it was a lot different. Circumstances have changed so much. A lot of people want a 4-year degree now, although it's not mandatory, but a lot of people do. They want you to have experience. It's just, I was never a PA. I was never even an assistant editor. I just kind of grew up editing and directing and yada, yada, and I'm here. But it's harder now. It's good to become a PA. A lot of these people, I want to produce. Right? Or I want to direct. They become a PA and go, hell no, I don't want to do that.
Right. Yeah, they suddenly change what their path is, and they say, it's not the area I thought. Well, and I hope that's part of this show is I hope I'm opening the door for people to go, hey, that job sounds really interesting.
Yeah, well, our PAs have pretty much full run of the stage and everything, and they go up to the sound booth and go, wow, this is so cool. I didn't even know we had a sound booth, There's so many different jobs, hair, makeup, wardrobe, prop. It's not all about producing, directing, and editing. There are so many jobs.
And your path changes. Everybody's path's a little different. I do think the system is a lot more kind of regimented and organized now. So you really have to kind of find your way in. You need access. You need people to help make connections. And then it really is you show your work ethic and you earn your way.
Right.
But you got to have access a little bit to earn your way. Mentorship means everything.
Yeah, definitely. And I know, we had a couple of groups come through this last season of kids from school, and it was so fun. I remember one group, there must have been about 20 or 30 of them, and they came in the edit bay, and I was like, well, it's a good thing I have a big edit bay, right?
Right.
And they were just so interesting. And then a couple of them hung back afterwards, and they said, wow, I really want to learn more about this. So I give them my email address and everything. A couple of them came to the show. It's great that we can help people do that because we're going to retire eventually, and there are going to be new people here. I want to see more female and persons of color editing. I've had quite a few assistants. The thing about sitcoms is multicam sitcoms, there's only a handful of us, as you probably know. I would estimate there's probably 40 or 50 of us in town trying to help other people get their foot in the door and edit, spread the love a little bit,
I have a group, I try to help and mentor people along the way. I actually have a couple people in mind. If you don't mind, I'll send them your direction. What is the first thing you look at on a call sheet?
I never look at my name because I'm always OC.
Right. On call and edit, and you're always in before whatever was supposed to.
I always look at ESU, right? I always look at ESU and just see what time we're going to be there. And then the next thing I look at is, but I want to know what time our first shot is because it's usually around 10 or 11 because I need to be there for that.
All right. Now, what's the last thing you want to see on a call sheet?
Animals, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's tough because it can make for a headache.
Or maybe even some babies this season because, we've been kind of through the ringer.
All right. What do you love to see at craft service?
Our craft service is so great. He is awesome. Snacks and fruits and vegetables. And I love
an amazing job.
I love the peanut butter in the celery, those little things he made.
Yeah.
Those are awesome.
What's the thing you hate to see at craft services?
That I got there too late and the food's all gone.
Oh, we've all been there.
Yeah.
We've all been there.
Yeah. No, they're pretty good on on the Connors, it seemed like we always had pretty much enough.
Chance does an incredible job. Our craft services they're unbelievable, and he's just such a good guy. So
when you make a suggestion to him, and like 2 days later it's there, it's like, dude, really? He said, hey,
yeah.
take care of you,
Okay, Brian, how do you define success?
These are hard questions. Just being happy, loving what you do, I mean, I love doing this. I keep thinking retirement is, a few years away, but I can't imagine that I would quit. I think I'll just end up retiring when the phone stops ringing, but I just love working, love editing, do it as long as I can.
Well, I normally ask people, how do you measure up to your definition of success? But I'll say, nobody's going to stop calling. You are, it seems to be at the top of your game and continuing to excel. So stay as long as you like.
They keep calling, I'll be there.
Okay, what's the one thing you want on every set?
Actually, you're going to find, I want a medic there. And I'm not saying that because of the pandemic, but I'm not even in a really high risk job where I'm doing a lot of, like these construction guys are crazy. The stuff they're running around, the grips, the lighting.
Yep.
But every once in a while you do something to yourself, right?
Yep.
You cut yourself, or you need some Advil, or you need something. So I've visited the medic probably, as much as I've needed to, but I can't imagine guys and girls that are over there doing this all day, cutting things. I mean, we've had some issues on some of our shows.
Yeah, I've been the medic essentially for the most of this last year. I mean, I used to be a rescue diver, so I have some training, so it fit. It was fine. But we had a diabetic issue. We had somebody who had some health issues, so I had to take care of them and actually take them home. Freak things happen. You have hundreds of people working on a place all the time. Sooner or later, and it's not like we're not moving anything big, heavy. There's not equipment everywhere, right? So
exactly.
And I mean, I agree with you. I believe a medic should be kind of standard on every set.
Yeah. Well, I think we're going to see more of that this fall. Even when we're not there, they are building the sets with radio arm saws and drills, and they're on ladders and they're hanging lights, and things
I used
happen.
to build sets and do all these jobs, and man, do I know. And that's why I always so close to all the crew, and I'm always checking on people. And we had somebody who had just kind of a knee issue and a back issue last year, and I was kind of keeping track of them, and luckily they all kind of worked out. Yeah, people don't realize it's a really physical job, and it's easy for somebody to get hurt.
Exactly. So thank you for the medics. That's for a guy that you wouldn't think would need one, but occasionally you never know, right?
Right. Well, everybody needs one eventually, and that's one of those things. That's why they're so useful. It was a great answer. Okay, so what's the one thing you would eliminate from every set?
Ooh, marks on the floors, because they're my nemesis, because we're always trying to paint them out, and sometimes they get forgotten and they get left or whatever, or they cut them down is what they call it, to make them really small. Literally, we physically paint them out, and when arms and legs cross in front of them, you literally have to steal a piece of the floor and track it around the piece of the floor that's got a red mark on it or a blue mark. It becomes painstaking.
That's a brilliant answer, and it makes perfect sense. But again, only somebody who works in post would come up with that. It makes so much sense, Brian. And I'm thinking to myself, of course, marks, because you end up having to get rid of them. And it's like you said, it's your nemesis.
Yeah, they're there. We don't always shoot that wide, but as you know, the way we enter our scenes is usually with a wide shot.
Right.
And when people are moving around, we go up to that wide shot. And that the good thing about the Connors kitchen floor is there's generally food on it.
It's got a lot of marks and stuff, right? It's never pristine, so at least it's not a shiny brand new floor.
Exactly. Yeah. So sometimes a black mark or a brown mark looks like it could be leftover toast from earlier that morning. It's the pink ones and the red ones and the yellow ones that don't look natural. But you look at the shows, you don't see that because we fix a lot of that, and sometimes it's not even there. It just depends on how complex the scene is.
All right. What's the best thing you've gotten as a gift from a project?
Well, I still have it. Hang on, let me find it. I've got your keychain right here, and I gotta find it. It's right here. It's right here. Oh, It's right here. I can't find it. It's got my spare set of house keys on it, but you were really nice enough to give us a really nice keychain that said the Connors on it, so I have that. So thank you very much for that.
Always.
You didn't have to do that.
No, I tried to make sure that everyone knows that they matter, that they're acknowledged, because I appreciate all the work everybody does. All right, how do you want the people who work with you to remember you?
When Joanne and I help mentor people, we say, go meet everybody. Go hang out if you can and sponge off these people, because these cameramen have been doing this forever and they've got stories and experience, and they're just great people to learn from. So I guess that's what I got to say about that.
That's great. I mean,
yeah.
And I agree with you. I think people should do a better job of diving into each other and the other departments, because the better we know each other, kind of the more equipped we are to help each other or to ask each other questions and gain knowledge. And I think it just makes the production better. All right, what's the legacy you want your family to take from your life?
I don't know, that I just, a good mentor for kids and people coming up in the business, and good editor. I don't know, family father figure. Lauren's in the business. I've actually got a son in the Navy, and then I've got another son who is studying to be a police officer. In today's day, that's going to be a really tricky.
It's a challenge. And what I would say is thank your son in the military for his service for me. And then thank your other son for being willing to be the right kind of people to stand up in our society. Because I know you, and I know your integrity, and I know the honor that you carry yourself with. And we need good people to become police officers. So thank him and tell him, stay true, keep standing in the lessons you learned at home. You're the kind of people we need on the street.
Yes, he's going to be good. He's learning so much from everything that's going on.
And my best to your wife and your daughter. Thank you, Brian. Thank you for coming on and doing this. I think it's a really good idea and opening experience for people who may not have ever considered the detail of what editing entails and how vital it is. I mean,
great. Thank you. And I'm glad you're doing this, because it's nice to shed light on everyone's job, because not a lot of people know what all the people on the set do, right? I mean, you know what editing is. What does the first AD do?
Right.
Well, they're going to go look at Amy's and go, oh, wow, really? She does all that?
Yep.
And all that. And same with Jeremy and the other people I'm sure you're going to interview. It's going to help people figure out, especially our younger crowd, what they want to do and what sounds really cool.
Yeah, I hope that's my hope, is to take people behind the scenes and to give people an insight into what our business is and how many brilliant and amazing artists go into making a production possible.
Right.
And then also for people to look at this and say, oh, there's a lot of jobs in this business that I'd never considered before. And that one sounds like me, or I agree with that person who does that job. That sounds like the kind of place I want to be, or I want to be a part of that.
Well, I just want to say I appreciate you, because when the audience leaves our set, you're there at the door, shaking their hand and talking to them, taking pictures. You're very approachable, and people just love that about you. You know, I've taken a couple of really fun, candid shots with you that are just a blast. So you're just a fun guy to hang out with, you know?
Appreciate it.
Stay the way you are. That's all I have to say. Don't change.
Thank you. If you'd like to be updated on Fish's Call Sheet, go ahead and subscribe or hit the bell below so you know right when we update new information.